And everyone is welcome here, no matter what, no exceptions, and that's what we're gonna sing about together. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. Oh my soul is welcome here. Oh my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. Please join me in turning around, saying good morning to those live streaming. You're in the right place at the right time. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. Oh my soul is welcome here. Oh my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome. Oh my soul is welcome. Oh my soul is welcome here. Oh my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome. I'm getting the message. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome here. Your soul. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome here. You know that your soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome here. My soul, your soul is welcome here. Yeah. My soul is welcome. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here.
Good morning, Reverend James.
Good morning, and all souls are welcome here. We got a little echo going on, but it's correctable.
It is always correctable. Everything in life is correctable.
Absolutely.
And we greet you this morning in the name of all that is good, all that is holy, and all that is sacred. And in the warm and loving energy of this mission-centric ministry, Spiritual Life Center. If this is your very first time with us today, or your very first time live streaming, we especially want to welcome you, because we know that you are not here by accident. Everyone is here by
Divine appointment.
And we're just so thrilled to have everyone with us today. And we're also very, very thrilled when you turn off your cell phone or anything else that makes some sort of an electronic murmur.
And as we create that clearing, we can go straight to the presence. So let's do so as we commune with this presence for a moment, knowing that we always have a direct connection to this something we call God. But whatever name we call it, we realize it's always there for us. It is something that we live in, move in, and have our very beingness in. That we have all the qualities of this presence. Whether it be peace, love, joy, wisdom, as we make these things the activity of our awareness, our consciousness, we vibrate on such a level that others around us has it ignited within them. Because we're all connected on a soul level, on that spiritual level. And when deep calls unto deep, deep answers deep. And so we deeply go to the depth of our own being in order to connect with everyone, in order to connect to that presence of God that is also our life. So we go forth, coming under its government and guidance, allow it to have its way with us. And as we do, we lift our vibration to such a degree that all others around us are lifted up as well. So we're grateful to be the vessels and vehicles of this presence as we go forward, multiplying, amplifying the good that is everywhere, but most importantly, right where we are. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen. Well, each week we've been reaffirming by stating out loud the spiritual principles that unity is based upon. So we're going to say those together this morning. So on 1, 3, 2, 1. God is absolute good and everywhere present. People are inherently good. Thoughts create our experiences. Prayer and meditation is how we connect with God. We must take action. And action we take. And action we take.
This coming Wednesday is a Wednesday, excuse me, but it is our special Easter communion service, and this is a service that we work to reframe it so that it is a communion that is about the teachings of Jesus as opposed to teaching about Jesus. So we love to have all of you come with us. Reverend James and I will be doing the service, and the chaplains will be offering the communion portion of the service. The salad is at 6, and the service starts at 7.
And also, we have the pleasure of learning together with one of our region's beloved licensed unity teachers, Lorna, how to pronounce your last name? Shevlin?
Well, it should be Shevlin.
Shevlin.
But my Norwegian grandfather, when he came off the boat, they couldn't understand him, so they said, "You are Shevlin."
So Shevlin, you are. I'm going to say a few words about her upcoming class.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, it's good to be back here in this vibrant, loving community. It's just amazing. It just tickles me. I have to do a bit about truth in advertising. This picture is 10 years old. And when I saw it, I thought, ooh. But then I thought, that's what this journey of aging is all about, right? It's about embracing all of it. So let me start with a question. How many of you are 50 or above? Raise your hand. Holy moly.
Only chronologically, but that's okay.
I brought a present for you. This present is a gift from God. This present is the second half of your life. And it's waiting for you to open it and to live it with joy and grace and love. And so in my class, Myths, Lies, and Opportunities of Aging, we're going to open this box. We're going to open this incredible gift from God. And we're going to start with quickly disposing of the myths and lies. We're going to put them aside and realize what they are so that we can dig into who we are and what we are wanting to become. Because we never know what we're going to become. I have things that have blossomed out in my life that I could never have predicted 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. So when we open up this box, we'll get rid of the myths and lies. We'll do a life review, which is familiar to some of you who have taken this class with me before. But it's been 5 years since I've given the class. I'm seasoned. I'm more humbled. And that's what this process is about. And I'm more full of love, I believe. So we'll look at the life review. We'll harvest the lessons from our lives through a process. And from those lessons, we'll learn how to take our rut stories and move them into river stories that better serve us. We'll get in touch of how we can love more fully, more deeply. We'll get in touch with how we can be more authentic. We'll look for communities that make us feel like warm sunshine upon our souls. And we'll address ways to serve, because that's what we're called to do, is to serve. And woven through these 10 or so topics will be spiritual principles and practices to guide us. So I hope you'll join me on this journey. I hope you'll come and open up your gift. And in the patio there, you'll see some images that I've created on aging. And it's part of the soul collage process, which I'll put into a special session for the class. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorna.
Our annual meeting is on May 5th. It's from 12:45 to 2 p.m. And to sweeten the deal and to keep you from having to run out and get lunch, the choir will hold a bake sale and a light lunch, and they will also be selling light lunch items. This is a fundraiser for them. So you can also, that'll give you the opportunity to meet with the slated new board members and share your insights, and then you can ask your most pressing questions.
And also just a reminder that one of our most engaging and popular speakers returns this year, Teresa Campos. She's going to be our guest speaker on May the 26th, and she was on a panel that I was on with the Expo a while back, and she was like a last-minute fill-in, but it was almost like she was always there. She did a spectacular job. So she's going to be here to offer a 3-week class in June that will help you gain greater clarity on how to redesign your life. So if you're looking for an upgrade, she can help you.
And we were so excited about Lorna, we skipped over the spring calendar that is in your program. We have the communion service on Wednesday, we have a Good Friday service on Friday, and then we're going to have Easter service. And then on Wednesday, another wow thing is on Wednesday, May 29th, Matt Venuti will be here. How many people saw him when he was here a couple of years ago? He uses these pan arts instruments. They're very unusual, and he does a lot of healing work, and it's a very special evening. So we'll be keeping you updated on that one.
And we want to acknowledge our ambassadors, any Board of Trustee members that are here this morning, as well as our prayer chaplains. Our ambassadors are wearing the rainbow ribbons, and they're here to answer questions that you may have about Spiritual Life Center, direct you to the right and proper places to help you get more engaged in our community. And so we thank them for being such wonderful hosts to our community. Also, we have our prayer chaplains who are doing the very important work of holding the prayer consciousness for you, for our community as a whole, but also for you individually. And if you want to have direct prayer with them, they're available right after the service in the courtyard, whether you're going through a challenge or just want to leverage the joy that you already have to help you bring more of that. And then, of course, our Board of Trustee members who happen to be here this morning, if there are any around this morning. Okay, we do. See, they serve double duty, triple duty, and they're helping answer questions. They're really the ones that help direct the direction of our community, keep the consciousness high, set the strategy for how we're going to continue to unfold in this new century. So we thank them for their work and the consciousness they bring to our community.
And if you're here for the very first time today, in a moment we're going to ask you to raise your hand. But we also want you to know that there are many, many ways to become connected here at SLC. And if you fill out the welcome card that the greeters will give you and put it in the offering basket or take it right outside around the corner to the welcome table, they will have a special gift for you.
So if you are here for the very first time, just simply raise your hand. Any first timers this morning, just keep your hand up nice and high. We have a gift we'd like to give you. It's a chalet and also a card that if you choose, you can fill that out to stay informed about what's happening at Spiritual Life Center. And on the chalet, there is a statement, a tag that says, we believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And there are many paths to the one God. So we thank you for joining us this morning on your path to understanding your oneness with the presence of God, as well as each and every one of us. And so we have an opportunity to greet any newcomers that may near you. Just say you are marvelous, but also to greet one another, to say you're marvelous, glad you are here.
stay standing and join us in singing our group song, Day by Day. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Day by day, day by day, oh dear Lord, three things I pray: to see thee more clearly, to love thee more dearly, follow thee more nearly, day by day, day by day, day by day. Oh dear Lord, three things I pray: to see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, follow thee more nearly, day by day, day by day, day by day. Oh dear Lord, three things I pray: to see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, follow thee more nearly, day by day, day by day, day by day. Oh dear Lord, three things I pray: to see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, follow thee more nearly, day by day, day by day, day by day, day by day. Oh dear Lord, three things I pray: to see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, one more time, see thee more clearly, love thee more dearly, follow thee more nearly, day by day, day by day, day by day, by day by day by day. Give yourselves a hand and please be seated. And as a community, we're up to living with nothing and no one against us. And so please, together, let's read this cue card. Please have compassion for us when we are being not enough, distrusting, grieving, blaming, powerless, fearful, because this is who we have come here to be: inspired, in integrity, joy-filled, compassionate, unstoppable, generous, transformational. And now let's embody all that into our vision statement together. Spiritual Life Center is a loving, vibrant family that welcomes home all people and accepts everyone, no exceptions, weaving ancient spiritual traditions with emerging wisdom. We cultivate a spiritual deepening with the divine, each other, and our planet. And I invite you to take a deep breath and settle into your chair. And in preparation for meditation, please join us in singing this beautiful chant written by Paula Mandela, Showers of Grace. Showers of grace as a bird sings, as the grass grows, as a dewdrop clings, all of nature knows. Showers of grace and this ocean of joy pour into you, into me. Washed in pure love, the sacred heart reveals, humbly to serve the supreme. As a bird sings, as a bird sings, as the grass grows, as a dewdrop clings, all of nature knows. Showers of grace and this ocean of joy pour into you, into me. Washed in pure love, the sacred heart reveals, humbly to serve the supreme.
Showers of grace. We are washed in pure love. As we move into this time of meditation, allow yourself to become comfortable, breathing deeply, softening. Allow this truth to resonate through you. We are washed in pure love, filled with grace. Breathing in again into this place of stillness. We open, aligned with spirit, aligning with the messengers of light, those who have come to bring hope to our world. Like our beautiful prophet Jesus, so filled with love that it overflows, so full of compassion that he weeps at our suffering, a heart so tender that it bears no grudge, but offers only grace and forgiveness. These are the gifts of God: love, compassion, grace, and forgiveness. And we are created in this image. We are the grace of God. Imagine for a moment if you could only offer love. Whatever comes before you, your only response is love. We all face our challenges in life, those things that come before us that challenge our sense of who we want to be. When I'm tired or in a hurry, I don't always respond with grace. I don't always have compassion for myself or those around me.
Yet what if I could only offer love? Would there be a need for forgiveness? If I could live my life like Jesus, showing my potential to the world, sharing who I have come here to be. As per the scripture, John 14:12, very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. For we are all created in the image of God, and just like Jesus. Imagine if you knew you were arriving into peril, that your days are numbered, because when we think about it, they are. So with this limited gift of time, how do you want to show up in this world? As a messenger of God, trusting so fully that you will be guided and protected, that you shall not want, knowing goodness and mercy are upon you. In the silence, imagine yourself in these days that matter, filled with grace, comforted in God's ever-present love. And as we come back into this moment, we bring a deep knowing we are just as wondrous as Jesus, forever in God's embrace, guided by a shepherd, bringing love to our world, and many blessings on your journey. Amen.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in pastures so green. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in pastures so green. He leads me and he feeds me by the water. He restores my soul and he makes me whole by the water. And though I am walking to comfort and strengthen in your power. You see me at your table, you pour your presence over me. My cup is running over before my enemies. Your goodness and your mercy, they're running after me. They're running after me. They're running after me. Running after me. You're with me in your power. Come us. Strengthen in your power. You lead me and you feed me by the water. You restore my soul and you make me whole by the water. Wonderful life, wonderful healing, wonderful salvation, this water to drink. You know there are rivers of living water. There are rivers of living water. There are rivers of living water.
Thank you, Ann. Psalm 23. Never been said or sung better. It's good to be back after being away for a week. And understand that Gary Simmons last year gave you a homework assignment. Have you been staying above the line? Staying above the monitoring where you are? I mentioned that I'm sure that everyone here would be on their best behavior. And he mentioned that it was like a wild number of wild banshees prancing around here last week with cowboy hats on and everything. And I said that was their best behavior. Just kidding, of course. Well, we're heading into Holy Week. Lots of conversations, debates, and stuff around Jesus. And it's going to be like the center of attention. Seems like all around this time of the year, it used to be on television, a lot of stories around Easter, and somehow they always slip in there the Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston. I never quite got that. And people asking the question, well, who was this person? What did he really do? What did he represent? And of course, for those who have been here for a while, know that he represents our possibilities. We never saw him as the great exception, but rather a great example of what's potential for us, what we can achieve in our own life. He was a model, a prototype of what's expected of us. But of course, following that potential and that prototype is not easy. I had an opportunity once to go to dinner with Maya Angelou years ago. And it was a great conversation to have with her. She's very interesting. I have to tell you some insights about my conversation with her. But she was talking about one time that she was speaking to an acquaintance or a friend, and they were very proud to say, well, I'm a Christian. And her response was, already? And in that response, she was saying that there's a distinction between proclaiming yourself to be a, quote, Christian and actually living the Christ life. See, a Christian is someone who may say that, well, there's a one-time ceremonial salvation that I engage in so that I can kind of be relieved of my inherent faults that I was born with the notion that somehow I can appease God and a God that's somehow outside of ourselves, somewhere way out there. But when she talked about living the Christ life, it's about following and embodying the teachings with the realization that this presence we call God eternally abides within each and every one of us. You know, for a long time, I was kind of like a refugee from most religion. And I also had a problem with the term Christ or Jesus or anything like that. But what I realize is that when we talk about the Christ, we're not talking about a person. We're talking about that part of God within each and every one of us. And we can substitute another word for that. We could call it the force. We can call it the genius. We can call it the potential. We can call it our inner power. We can call it the divinity that we all have. We can use any word that we want to substitute for the Christ, but it's that part of God we all have, and our job is to call it forth as the activity of our awareness, our consciousness. So today we're going to get a glimpse of who Jesus was as we examine the Palm Sunday story. I figure being Palm Sunday, I ought to relate to the story of Palm Sunday. And a lot of people celebrate it different ways, and throughout the world, throughout the nation, we really, in the practice, we're trying to celebrate what it represents each and every day. So in a minute, I'm going to read the story of the Palm Sunday. And I know that we don't usually read, scriptural references of the Bible here at Unity. I mean, many of us who are refugees like myself maybe have a little aversion to that. But it's going to be okay. You're going to be all right. You're going to survive. You're going to survive. And one of the things that I would say that New Thought Unity has when it comes to the Bible reference that's unique and its unique contribution is that it has a metaphysical or a symbolic representation of the stories. We don't look at them as being literal historical fact, although there is literal history in it. But rather, what do the stories represent that are within us? How does it tell us about our own unfoldment in spiritual consciousness? And so I'm going to read from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 21, verses 1 through 11. That sounds real old school, don't it? Some of the old school, somebody told me that in some Bible or seminaries, they tell you how to hold the Bible in a certain way. You got to hold the Bible like this, I'm not going to do that. But it says, when they had come near Jerusalem and had reached Bethphage at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, just say this: the Lord needs them, and he will send them immediately." This took place to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet, saying, "Tell the daughter of Zion, look, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, and on a colt, and the foal of a donkey." The disciples went and did as Jesus had directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and put their cloaks on them, and he sat on them. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds went ahead of him, and that followed were shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest heaven." When he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was in turmoil, asking, "Who is this?" The crowds were saying, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth of Galilee." In that story, there is a symbolic as well as mystical meaning of Palm Sunday. Jesus riding on the donkey into Jerusalem with palms laid out in front of him has a meaning for us, a great meaning for us, and it symbolizes the transition of the soul from what we call the animal consciousness, or maybe what Gary would say, below the line consciousness, where it evolves to the human consciousness, where we kind of have a little bit of both, and then we move into divine consciousness, where we're totally above the line. And Jesus riding on the donkey means he had dominion over the animal nature. He was riding into the holy city. He had dominion over that lower nature. It did not control him. He got to the point where he represented our at one-ment with God, our oneness with our divinity, that Christ nature, that God within us, that genius capacity within us. So he had dominion over that reactionary part of us. And the divine became fully orbed in his life. It bloomed in him as a human being where we could not see where he began as a human being, and the divinity began as well, because he always represented the truth. He said so to the extent that he was able to say, "When you see me, you see the presence that sent me. I represent the fullness of these qualities." So Palm Sunday is that spiritual or mystical celebration of that transition that all of us are seeking to move through as we continue to grow, develop, and unfold on this spiritual path. We want to have a whole soul devotion to the qualities of God and love and peace, and begin to be aware of those places within us that we've identified with ourselves up until this point that may be below that line that Gary talked about. Sometimes we get in those places where we get comfortable there, but we need to move out of it, because, as somebody said, sometimes we get to the point where we're more comfortable with that which we know that is not good for us, rather than go into that place that we don't know that is very good for us. But we get stuck in that egoic level, that below-the-line consciousness. You know, we teach that we're here to let go and let God. And this is what the master teacher did as he went through his own process, and he moved from that lower rung of consciousness to that divine consciousness where he could see where he was never separated from this presence. And all of our work is about going through that same process. It's about moving from the conditioned responses and getting into this all goodness that is calling all of us to be more, to be ourselves, to be who we are in potential as those Christed beings, where there's constant movement, constant expansion till we get to the full spiritual awareness. Now, we do a lot of work to get there. We involve ourselves in lots of training and workshops, seminars, and techniques. We do all of that stuff to prepare the soil for us to get to that point. But I always say that we do all of that just to keep the ego busy until the whole Spirit of God can do the work. Because it's not done by us. It's done through us. As I mentioned in the earlier service, when I was in ministerial school, we would go to Silent Unity services on a regular basis, first thing in the morning. And they would always start out by saying these words: "It is not I, but the Christ within that does the work. It is not I, but the Spirit within that does the work. It's not I, but this presence that is far more powerful than our individual self that does the work." So what we have to do then is keep those other parts of our consciousness that are not in tune with that, keep it busy, doing something, until something else can slip in. And so in that vein, there was a story about this monk, of course. And he had a wonderful disciple. He was an African-American guy, and we'll see why in the story why this is important. Normally it's not important. But this guy went to see the monk, and he wanted to get a mantra from the monk in order to uplift his vibration, where he could command a spirit, a particular spirit entity to do his bidding. And he knew if he raised his vibration to such a level, he could do this. So he went to the monk and he threw himself down before the monk to be his student. And he said, I want the mantra that will bring me to that point that will lift my energy field, my vibration, where I can command the spirit to do what I want it to do. And the monk said, well, I could teach you this, but there's a catch. The spirit you're about to command always has to have something to do. And if you don't give it something to do, it will devour you. And so the guy said, hey, no big deal. I got a lot of stuff for the spirit to do. And he started thinking about all the things he could give the spirit to keep it busy. And so the monk said, well, all right, I'll give it to you. So he gave him the mantra. And the disciple started repeating the mantra over and over and over again. And he eventually lifted his vibration. He felt connected to that high energy field. And all of a sudden, the spirit appeared. And the spirit said, what would you have me do, master? And the disciple said, I want a palace, make it big and beautiful. And he laid down to take a nap after he gave his instruction. And the spirit came back and said, I'm finished, master, what else? He didn't even get a chance to get a nap. He didn't even close his eyes before he was done. And then he said, okay, I fill it with servants and wonderful food that's just smelling really good when I get home. And in an instant it happened. He still hadn't gotten that nap. And the disciple and the spirit said, what would you want me to do now, master? And the disciple said, cut the lawn. It was done. Painted another color. It was done. He could not keep up with this particular spirit. And the spirit said, I'm getting hungry. I'm getting hungry. I'm going to devour you. And so the guy hightailed it to the monk and said, help me, help me. The spirit is about to devour me. And the monk said, I told you if you were going to get involved in this, what was going to happen. And he said, please, at this point, don't give me advice. Save my life. So the monk plucked the hair out of the disciple's head. He was an African-American guy, so he had really curly hair. And the spirit was coming to devour him, and he handed the hair to the spirit, and he said to the spirit, make this hair stand straight. And so the spirit held it, but every time he let it go, it would curl right back up. He'd pull it straight, he let it go, and it curled right back up. And he said to the disciple, now tell him what you want him to do, and after you tell him what you want him to do, tell him to stand this hair straight, and your life will be saved. Now, the moral of this story, if there is one. Now that hair curling up, this is what we must do to the conditioned part of ourselves. The part of us that has become habitual. That part of us that is below the line. We must give it something to do. So that even when our surface mind is going crazy, it will not devour us. It will not take us over. We must be devoted to what we really are as spiritual beings. That when the surface breaks up and we start going through our own transformations, our chemicalizations, we're at our wits' end and we don't know what to do. We have such a response to life that response takes over and changes us in spite of the habits that we've gotten into. So when we want to hold on, we've been practicing these principles to such a degree that something else happens because we're practicing letting go and letting God. When we want to be in resentment and we want to be engaged in that kind of energy field, something else happens because we've been practicing forgiveness. When we don't want to be our best, something else takes us over because we're focusing on our purpose and the reason that we are here. I think this is what spiritualizing our entire life is about. We got to give those lesser parts of ourselves something to do to stay occupied. So we begin to tell ourselves, first and foremost, I'm on a spiritual path. A spiritual path means change. It means transformation, nothing remaining the same, constant expansion of our awareness. We begin to tell that self that, look for the good. We begin to tell ourselves, I'm here to give. I'm here to share myself. And this breaks up the limited perspectives that sometimes says we're not enough. We're never enough. There's diminishing returns in this world. We tell ourselves, I'm here to give. I'm here to share. And we begin to tell ourselves that because when we share, we're investing. When we invest, there is a return. So we have to catch that. So oftentimes we want to be consumers only. And, we get that reinforced by the people who advertise and really know how to take advantage of our weaknesses and help us buy things that we do not need. I don't know if you ever do that. We can never get enough of that which we do not need. And sometimes we get so caught up in those material world things that it begins to devour us. But we're not here just to be consumers. We're here to be investors, to invest, to get a return, invest in life, invest in ourselves spiritually. And part of that is we become givers. I ran into a video about some kids that were given some money to buy ice cream. And they either had a choice of buying the ice cream or helping out a homeless guy. If we can roll the clip, probably won't have the music behind it, but I'll see if I can narrate along the way. It's coming. It's on its way. And so there's a guy in the ice cream truck, and he sets everything up. He said he's going to give every kid $1. And they're instructed that they can either keep the $1 or they can go give it to the homeless guy. What will they do? And we will find out in any moment what they will do as we go through the iterations necessary to get to the rolling of the tape, the rolling of the video. Somehow, some way, he's contemplating right now, what should I do with this $1? Should I buy myself some ice cream, which will taste so good, or should I give it away or not? I may have to act it out. Someone is telling me. We'll see. It looks like it's kind of stuck. Well, anyway, I'll just tell you what happens. So he hesitates. He thinks about it. And of course, he runs over and he gives the $1 to the homeless guy. And then there's a second kid that comes up. And they're contemplating the same identical thing. What should they do? And that second person also gives the $1. And then there's a third young lady that comes up. She thinks about it and goes right to the ice cream truck. Gives the $1, gets the ice cream cone, and then goes right back and gives the ice cream cone to the homeless guy. I think everything that they were going through helps us remember that when in doubt, share. When in doubt, give. Of course, now it's going. After I've already given you the punchline of everything. Okay, I guess you can see it in real time. We got the music. We got this background. You want to leave it on or leave it off? Well, we got some copyright issues that came up. They kind of dinged us and said, oh, you can't do that. Yeah, YouTube. I don't know why. We're not making any money off of this. I think that's an illustration that we're here to give. And when we do that, we begin to break up the belief that there's not enough. We begin to believe that there's something that we do not have that we need to hold on to. It breaks up the surface belief that says that we're conditioned only to hold on to things. Sometimes we have to shake the conditioned part of us up in some way, shape, or form. And so when we're practicing these principles, it'll get us through whatever challenges that happen to come up after that. So even if we're having a bad day, like we're feeling like we want to overturn the tables in the temple. We want to curse out a fig tree. When we're feeling there's some sort of big thing about to happen, we're so steeped into our spiritual practice that we're able to get through that and get something that we know is not yet defined, but we know it will be good. We want to say, God. We want to say, God, remove this from my lips, as Jesus said next week or Friday. We'll say that. I don't want to do this. But something else begins to happen when we begin to get our conditioned part used to doing something that is more in line with our spiritual nature. So in spite of ourselves, in spite of wanting to hold on, in spite of wanting to stay small, in spite of wanting merely to be comfortable or be liked or accepted by mediocre minds, when we're trying to stay the same and change the world, when we're staying below the line, when we're practicing these things, something else becomes different. The human part of us may become crucified. The conditioned part may be crucified, but the real self can rise up through that. And so we'll celebrate Palm Sunday. And our real self will begin to come out. I shared that when last week I went to Philadelphia for my son's mock trial championship competition. It didn't do quite as well as they did last year, but they had a good time. I had a good time. But while I was there, I made a decision that I was going to visit my mother. And for those who don't know, I had a story that I was abandoned by my mother when I was 5 or 6 years old. And I didn't see her, know about her for over 30 years. And somehow, some way, she found me and my sister. And at that moment, I didn't really want to have anything to do with her. I had a reactionary, below-the-line consciousness, to say the very least. But somewhere along the line, I practiced this idea of forgiveness. It also helped me understand that no matter how thin the pancake, there's always two sides. So I got a different perspective that I didn't know about when I got a chance to talk with her, and we talked for probably a couple days at a time. And some some things I didn't anticipate happened. In addition to reconnecting, I discovered 3 sisters I didn't have, 2 brothers I didn't know, that expanded my life even more. And I probably would not have gotten to that point if I hadn't been steeped in practicing a spiritual principle that opened up that possibility to happen in my life. I think when we devote ourselves to spiritual principles, our real self comes out. We end up loving in spite of ourselves, the small self. We end up forgiving or giving despite the small self. We end up forgiving in spite of the small self. We end up sharing in spite of the small self. The terminology will change, but we'll realize that this is our real self, the one that's giving and loving and sharing. So this Palm Sunday is a triumphant entry. It's moving into the Jerusalem, the holy city, which represents peace. It's stepping into that cosmic consciousness, that cosmic Christ awareness, where we're able to say, as Jesus said, I am what thou art what I am, and we're releasing ourselves into the mystery that is always good. That's what he did. He bared witness to the truth that life is eternal. It didn't matter what they said about him. It didn't matter what they called him. All of that was unimportant. This Christ presence, which is part of God, of every soul, was revealed. So on our Palm Sunday, we're deciding here to be devoted to spiritualizing our entire life. particularly when things are going good. When things are really high and everything's going well, a lot of times when people slack off, they say, you know, I got this together. I can miss a meditation or two. I don't need to be hanging out with those people anymore. I'm cool. My own will can take care of this. But in those moments that we want to go deeper into the presence, because if we don't, we may have those experiences where we get into that lower vibration, those animal consciousness. It'll start taking us over. We'll start scrambling. We want to run to a guru, and we'll hear ourselves saying, man, I'm getting devoured as I go through this experience, but you may not have a curly hair to straighten out. You may not have any techniques that are built in where you can say, not my will, but God's will be done. If we have that spiritual connection, when the storms of our life hit, it won't bother our roots as much. That's why we meditate every day. That's why we express gratitude every day. That's why we read or listen to inspirational messages every day, to keep us so rooted in this presence. We're talking about whole soul devotion, spiritualizing our entire life. And this is what Jesus did in preparation for the crucifixion. This is what he did every day, and we're here to do the same. So when those storms do show up, when our crucifixions do show up, we will not be moved. So we train ourselves to look for the good in every circumstance, in every situation. We give that lower self, that below the line self, something to do. Keep it occupied with a spiritual principle, go on a hunt to look for the good and tell ourselves, I'm a giver. I'm here to invest in life. And then we watch as our perceptions expand over and over again. We may say, oh, I thought it was this, but I'm really this. I thought it was this, and I'm really this. You're that magnificent. As it says, you are the light of every man and woman that cometh into the world. You have no limits. And with that understanding, you're prepared for whatever life may bring you, because you made a way for the triumph. We'll talk more about that next week in the resurrection. Peace and blessings to you. Speaking of next week, we're going to have on Easter early sunrise service. Some of us like to get up early, like 6 o'clock. So you can be with Reverend Louise Bizark, offering a contemplative courtyard sunrise meditation, and then Rise and Shine with music by Jennifer and Chris Enright. And then, of course, our 9 and 11 services, Time to Rise, will have the choir will be directed by our own LaJean Walker. And, of course, the Easter egg hunt at 12:30 for all the youth. And you can be a Ute at heart. I don't know if you ever saw the movie My Cousin Vinny. You hear about Utes. Well, let's take a moment to prepare to give our gift and love offering. And know that if you've given any other way, through electronic giving or by mail, you're in this flow of absolute abundance, a principle that never changes, that says whatever we give out comes back to us, maybe in ways we never imagined. It supports this community for those who are looking for ways to transform their lives. And so with that awareness, let's say our offertory blessing together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. Thank you, God.
That's a clock.
preparing the way for whatever comes before us, because we spiritualize our entire life, and we're ready. So we bless these tithes and offerings, knowing we're going to bless the givers and receivers as we go forth, expanding and demonstrating the whole good in our life. And so it is. Amen. So with that, let us join together and sing our peace song. And we deepen those words and that